Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode of the PT podcast. My name's William Lenz and in this episode I spoke to Connor Marshall. Connor is an exceptionally talented personal trainer that I've personally learnt a lot from, and I think he's really given some gems throughout this podcast, so I hope you all enjoy it as much as I did. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to start off. I just want to know a little bit about yourself. All right, so for everybody listening, just tell me your 2-minute bio, everything about you.
Excellent. I'm Connor. I like long walks on the beach and I've been PT been PT for about 4 years now. I love all types of training. I don't really gravitate towards one or the other. And I really like being healthy. I think it's the best thing about the gym. So yeah.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah. How'd you get into the industry?
I'd actually started off, I went to uni when I first left school and I was studying occupational therapy. And then I was just about to finish up my first year and I went on the prac where you just got to do hours following an occupational therapist around.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of home visits. So it actually wasn't at the hospital. We'd drive out to places and just visit people that needed the catch up with the OT. And then pretty much from there, I just started to realize that a lot of the people that needed the help probably could have prevented it had they just been a little bit more onto their health to begin with. So that was kind of the deciding factor for me to drop out of uni. And that's why I started PT, because I realized like a lot of that stuff probably could have been fixed with exercise if people hadn't let go of themselves for that long.
Were you exercising at that time?
I was always playing sport as a kid growing up. And I was training about 16. So as soon as I could get into the local gym, I went straight there. Had no idea what I was doing, as no one does when they start. But
everyone's the same.
yeah. And I was still training when I was at university and that. So it was kind of this uni thing hasn't worked out, which is, where most people will decide to go after the school. I decided I'd just go PT because I'm already in the gym all day.
Yeah. So you always knew you were going to be in the fitness industry?
It's something to do with health along the lines. If it wasn't OT, probably something like physiotherapy. But it was always going to be health related no matter what it was. I always had an interest in human bio over physics or anything like that. So
yeah, when you're hooked into it, it's pretty hard to avoid it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Did you go straight from your Cert 3 and 4 into working?
Yeah, I did. So I was working at Coles doing night fill while I was studying. And then I was lucky enough to...
It's amazing how many people go from night fill to personal training.
It's crazy, isn't it? It just works so well.
Yeah, everyone.
And it was good training for becoming a PT because, you get up at 6 o'clock to go do your certs and then you don't finish until 12:30 at night. So you're already used to the hours as it is. But from there I pretty much went and shadowed with a trainer called Mike Thornton at Raw at the time. And then was lucky enough to land a spot working for him. So that kind of got the ball rolling.
And how many sessions did you kickstart off on? As in the first 6 months, were you straight into it?
Oh yeah, straight into it. So the way that we did it, I didn't have to do any of my own sales, any of my own lead gen.
Perfect.
Yeah, pretty much when I first sat down with Mike, he's like, I don't want you to have to worry about that. He said, I just need you to worry about being the best trainer you can be for your clients. Which I think is the best place to start for anyone. Because you get better a lot quicker when all you have to worry about is actually getting a result with someone.
Yeah.
If you have to worry about where's the next lead coming from, am I going to close the next sale, then I think you start to lose touch of actually just getting a result for people to start off with.
Definitely.
But it's kind of a catch-22 when you start out as a PT, right? You got to get clients, but...
Yeah, and it's definitely like an awkward balancing act. It's like, how much effort do I put into lead generation versus getting clients results?
Yeah.
And you start making decisions based around fear and desperation. Absolutely. And that is the worst position to be in, no matter what your career is.
Yeah.
So how long were you with Mike for?
Me and Mike worked together for about 3 years.
Oh, a long time.
Yeah, well, so I was a trainer for him for probably 1.5 to 2 years. And then we started to work together for a while. And then he moved down towards the city way. So we kind of started doing our own thing from there. But a lot of good times, a lot of good years. Good courses, learnt a lot as well.
And you're at Good Life, which one?
Success, just
right
down in Coburn.
Yeah, fantastic. And how long have you been there for?
2 years now.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you were at Raw for a lot longer than that.
No, so I was at Raw for about 2 years. And then me and Mike both moved to Good Life Success. And then, I've been there for about 2 years now.
Cool. And what's your, kind of touched on it just before, you don't have gravitate to a certain style of training.
Yeah.
But if you were to say like your fundamental training philosophy,
Yeah.
what do you think that would be?
Obviously, it's going to be dependent on the goals of someone, but most of the time it's just about ensuring people have full, adequate movement. The right progression of exercises is the big thing, you know. As you're well aware, you don't throw someone under a bar the first session they come in.
Exactly.
So, you know, above all, I like to make sure people are just healthy in their movement, you know. Like you shouldn't be hurting. Hurting is in a bad hurt, like your joints shouldn't be aching, or you shouldn't be having niggles when you train, because if you are having those niggles when you train, I think there's something missing from your training that probably should have been supplemented in, or should be supplemented in while you keep doing that. You know, obviously if you're a powerlifter, you're doing max weights, like it's a lot of load for your body, you're going to hurt occasionally. That's just how things is. But yeah, most of the time it's just about keeping people moving well.
Cool. And when did you start with that? So do you have a go-to test that you go to?
Yeah, so if someone's coming in, I'll run them through 4 to 5 tests, just depending what they are. A couple of these I picked up when I started with Mike. I've refined a lot of them this year with Mark.
Yep.
So the first one that I will use is a forward flexion test. So bend down and touch your toes, or try to touch your toes for me. Not many people can touch their toes these days, especially not general pop. And pretty much all that's doing is just looking for the way someone bends down. Are they moving from their hips, or are they loading up their lumbar as they bend over to touch their toes? So that just gives me an indication of, do we need to retrain the movement pattern?
Yeah.
And most people don't use their hips, they always use their lower back. So
every time.
it's just a good indication, you know, where to start the person off from a more posterior chain basis. The next one I'll do is a back bend test. So just flexing back. So they're both spine tests, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And that's really just to see the motion someone has going back, because a lot of people sit these days, especially the people you get in a gym, they're constantly stuck in that kind of position. So if people don't have that flexion backwards, they can be at a high risk of something like a disc bulge.
Yeah. And you look at like each part of the back, like the lordotic part.
Yeah. Generally, you it's very hard to say what's good.
Yeah.
But you know, can someone bend back far enough? If they're like a stiff board, it's probably not the best idea to start them off deadlifting right then. And literally the fix for that is just practicing back bends every day, like up to 100 to 200 every day. But yeah, you're right. You can spot if someone's like super lordotic and then they're just tight in their thoracic region. So it can tell you more than just the back bend as well, if you look at it from that perspective. But it's probably not my first thought to figure something like that out.
Yeah.
But more so, I just use those tests to make sure, where can I start this person?
And it's perfect, simple.
Yeah.
So simple.
Don't hurt someone. It's pretty much the first rule of training someone, right?
I think that's what the entire Cert 3 and 4 is about.
Yeah.
Don't get sued and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's still a pretty good way to run a business.
Oh,
Don't get
absolutely.
sued,
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
It's probably rule number 1. I think.
Yeah. Unless you're into that kind of thing, but
Yeah,
that's your choice.
I don't know many good lawyers, so I'll stay out of that one.
Yeah,
but
I try not to. If you do, let me know though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you threw in a little bit in there about Mike.
Yep.
Oh, no, sorry, Mark Tobury.
Yep.
How'd you come across that mentorship?
So that was actually when I worked for Mike. Mike was doing the current mentoring program that I'm doing this year. And obviously he had a good relationship with Mark. So Mark come over to Perth and hosted the enterprise. First one he did the 3-day internship, and then he come over later that year and he did how to train the female competitor. And we did both of that in Perth. We went over to see Mark present at the Fitness Business Summit a couple of years back as well. So that was the first time I got to head to Melbourne and see Mark's gym, Enterprise Fitness. Yep. But pretty much from there, that's how I've known about Mark. I kind of always had a feeling I would probably do his mentoring. It was just kind of at which stage was I ready to kind of make that lunge into it.
Yeah, well, I first heard about Mark through Sebastian Orb's mentorship.
Yep.
So he actually mentioned him during one of, I think it was his bench press course.
Yep.
And since then I've come to realize how good quality his course is. I mean, the guests they have is just insane.
Yeah.
With Andrew Locke and all these really, really high up people. What's it like going over there and meeting all those people?
It's unreal. You really can't put it into words until you get into the facility itself. And they've obviously got their values listed there, and the gym is about excellence.
Yeah.
Excellence in everything you do. And you feel that when you walk in there, because even when you're training, like you're not getting away with a bad rep. Like you don't want to do a bad rep because you know you're going to have to redo it anyway. So yeah, it's just the standard that you're held to when you're there is awesome. And the caliber of the speakers, like you said, you know, easily the best in Australia, are always going to be there presenting. So yeah, it's really well rounded as well. It's not like you just go and you just learn training or you just learn nutrition. You've got your marketing element to it. There's the self-development element to it. So,
and obviously there's like a financial element to it, as in you had to pay for it.
Yep.
How do you justify those things? Because obviously there are a lot of people that they want to upskill, they want to get better, and they just, not tight asses, but they're very reluctant to give away their money.
Yeah.
How do you justify it in your brain?
I'm sure everyone that's had some level of success will always tell you that, you know, there's always going to be outlaying for courses. And the way I view it is, you know, if something's really cheap and too good to be true, the chances are it's probably going to be crap.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, fantastic.
Say whatever you want.
It's probably going to be shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say, you know, go and find the most expensive person you can find for mentoring. Like, you obviously need to have the relationship with them and know that they're the right fit for you. But, you know, if you're always trying to justify things on price, you're going to miss out on value at the end of the day. So, you know, for me, it doesn't matter what the price is. It's, you know, can I see value in what it is?
Do you think you've always been that way inclined? Do you think you've always been willing to put the chips on the table?
I'm a natural tight ass for sure. So it's definitely been just becoming a PT. And that was definitely the start when I worked for Mike, because I was getting charged out at premium rates and I was still new to the industry kind of thing. That was probably one of the biggest things I struggled with in the first 6 months, was actually just valuing yourself and being able to charge yourself out more than what you think you probably should be.
Yeah.
But that was a big learning curve over that year. And obviously the better you get as a trainer, the more confidence you have in yourself. So that wasn't something that just happened from day one. It was obviously a kind of a change over time.
Yeah. And like, I think that's the main thing that people don't do, is they don't upskill.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think if you're not a drastically better personal trainer every single year, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which obviously puts people in kind of an uncomfortable position when they first start, because you look at these people that have been upskilling for 30 years and you're like, holy crap, how the hell am I going to catch up with those people? And I know, you know, once a month, once every 2 months, I have a breakdown and I'm like, holy shit, there's so far to go. But then you kind of settle back into it, you're like, okay, you know, think about, you know, 3 years ago when I started. I'm a lot better now than when I was.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just do need to look back, you know, and realize how far. Like, everyone gets caught up in the, I should have done more by this stage in my life, or I haven't really done much this year. But most of the time, if people just look back on what they've actually achieved, it'll kind of help them get out of that hole as it was anyway. So, on
courses, do you? It's a difficult question to answer, but do you remember your first mind-blowing moment? So I know that when I first started in the industry, my first mind-blowing moment was my old coach, Sean Connolly. We were at his gym, and he was just rattling off just different things, like things that I just completely didn't understand, and I looked like blank eyes, just trying to take in all this information. I was just like, holy crap. And then from then on, I was hooked, and that's it. I knew I needed to know everything. Do you remember anything like that?
I definitely remember the first time I went and shadowed with Mike, because obviously I was training at the time. And as you are when you're a young guy and you're going through your Cert 3-4, you finish your Cert 3-4 where you don't learn anything.
But you feel like you know everything.
Feel like you know everything because you've just done 12 weeks of training to get a cert. So, and then I went and shadowed Mike, and he was just breaking down simple things like your VM function and your glute function. And he's a guy that spends most of his time poorly squatting and on a leg press and then walking, lunging. And I was like, oh my gosh. At that moment, I realized that I knew absolutely nothing. And that's either a very daunting moment or a very exciting moment, depending how you look at it. Probably a little bit of both. But that was really it. I think that's what kind of sparked it, because I just realized that I literally knew nothing about anything. So obviously when I got the opportunity to work under Mike, I jumped at it because, you know, it was a great opportunity to keep learning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So jumping from being a student to being an educator. I love asking the question, what has been the one piece of advice that you've given that's been ignored more than any other piece of advice? It's a tough question, but I feel like it's the simple things that people ignore that are actually usually the most important things to really wrap your head around.
Okay. Can you just say that once more?
So, what I'm trying to get at is, what's a piece of advice that you've offered so many different people, but you constantly see people ignore?
Don't compete on price.
Don't compete on price.
Don't compete on price.
Can you elaborate on that one?
So you see it quite like with especially new people that come into the gym, and they will generally like always lower prices, which I get if you're starting out and you're building confidence, that's fine. But then you see like experienced trainers who will charge minimum just to try and get a lot of people in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make sense to me, because if you're undercharging for what you think you're worth, you're going to deliver a terrible service. And then you get into that headspace where it's kind of like a revolving door with your clients, right?
Yeah.
You're always chasing your tail because you might sign heaps of people up because you're charging $30 to $40 a session, but then you've got that many people leaving, because then when you're there, it's a half an hour session, you're a couple minutes late for, and you don't really even get a full workout in.
Kind of that race to the bottom as well.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, it's a race that you don't want to win.
Nah, at the end of the day, someone's always going to be able to make a cheaper session or a cheaper anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of like you can go and buy $2 clothes, and most people won't do that because they know they're terrible quality, and
Yeah.
you know, they're worried about what people will think of them. Yeah, when it comes to their health and fitness, it seems like, you know,
It's crazy, isn't it?
yeah, it is. I don't think health is the thing that you want to be skimping money on.
No. Well, it's the only thing you've got for your entire life
Yeah.
until you don't.
Depending who you talk to, right?
Yeah. On that, skipping out on health,
Yeah.
if you had 5 habits to a healthy life,
Yep.
what do you think they would be? So obviously, you know, you got the typical training, nutrition, and everything like that.
Yep.
But let's say I'm a newbie, I'm an alcoholic, I drink,
Yep.
terrible lifestyle.
Yep.
Where would you start with me? What
Water.
5 habits?
Water is the number one thing to start with. Big believer in water. I think a lot of things that go on in day-to-day life, a lot of issues people have can be fixed with water. Probably the number one is low energy. The amount of people that seem to have quote unquote low energy these days, that could probably feel 10 times better if they just drank sufficient amounts of water. And obviously that's dependent on the person. As a very rough ball estimate, anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on the size of the person, would be a good starting point.
2 to 4 liters.
But you know, water, it's cheap, it's easily accessible from anywhere. It's the easiest place to start with someone for sure. After that, it would be sleep. And obviously that's going to be dependent on the person, because it is very person dependent. If the person doesn't have good sleep, anywhere from 7 to 9 hours is a good starting point.
And it's amazing when like you find people that don't sleep well and they haven't for their entire lives. They don't know what good sleep is.
They don't.
They wake up and they're tired, and you ask them how their sleep was, and like, yeah, it was average.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Or
like shit.
Yeah, they say they have good sleep, and then you talk, what time do you go to bed? What time do you get up? And they're sleeping 5 hours, and then they wake up twice in the middle of the night, and you're like...
Yeah, and I always find it amazing. I've got like a weekly check-in survey.
Yeah.
And it's always sleep quality. And they're like, oh yeah, it was 4 or 5, you know, it's really good. You know,
That's
stress
4 or
load.
5 out of 5?
Out of 5, yeah.
Okay, cool. I was
So,
going to
yeah,
say, it doesn't sound good
5
if it's
out of 5,
10.
yeah. Stress load, I'm not really stressed. It's like
Yeah.
a 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
And then energy levels, and it's like a 1 out of 5. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So you're sleeping great.
Yeah.
You're not stressed, yet you feel like crap.
Something's
going
off.
wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a good leeway. Probably the next one would be stress management. And that's kind of difficult to talk to some people about, because it's, you know, most people are going to be stressed about finances, work, something to do in their lifestyle that, like, realistically, as good as it would be to be like, you know, don't stress or don't do that. Like, people have to go to work. They've got to deal with their boss who's a dickhead to them, or they've got finances. It's more about just finding what that person enjoys and some way they can kind of break from having that stress, or something that helps to fill their own cup up.
So you're referring to like an activity that someone can do?
Like a lot of people are big on breathing, meditation. I think breathing is awesome. Breathing meditation is really good. I think
I'd say I often breathe as well.
Yeah, it's a good point you raised. But a lot of the time it just doesn't work for a lot of people. Like, how many people have you probably told to meditate, to calm down? That should have been the number one advice that you give people, and they never take it.
Yeah. Well, it's a real stigma about it for some reason.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's almost
It's
in
tied
a
in with religion.
in a Western society, for people to be like, slow down, calm down, and don't do anything. It is shunned upon, you know, because if you're not doing things all the time, then you're lazy. I think that's the kind of stigma that lays around it.
Oh yeah, and I find it's like it's linked with spirituality.
Yeah.
When it's really not.
No.
I mean, you can be spiritual and meditate. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or you can be not spiritual at all. And
Yeah.
meditation is still a really, really good tool for a healthy life.
Yeah. And it depends on someone's definition of spirituality, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
there's a whole heap of avenues to go with that, but I think people just need to do things they enjoy. And obviously there's a fine line. Don't quit your job and just play golf all day, but
Well, I mean,
it would be good.
if you can.
If anyone wins the lotto and wants to do
Yeah.
that for me, then let
That'd
me know.
be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it was on stress. I think it was at your course a few weeks ago that you were talking about a book called Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers.
Yeah, yeah.
And how the body doesn't know the difference between a phone call and a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty much that book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I can't pronounce the guy's name, Robert Sapolsky,
yeah.
something like that.
Looking up that book was impossible.
Yeah, that's it's a long read, but it really gives you a good understanding of how much stress can wreak havoc on the body, which was quite surprising to me.
Yeah.
And most of the times I look back on my first couple of years of PT when I didn't get a result with someone, even though I was pretty confident that they were doing their food pretty well. Most of the things were in check, so they should have got a result better than what they were. I can look back and think about things they had going on in their life and how that would have been just sabotaging everything we were doing. But back to the point, your body won't differentiate between a grizzly bear running in, tearing your limbs off, and then sitting in traffic while you're running late for work, or getting a letter from your bank saying that you owe them money. There's no difference. Your body will just fire the same trigger in the same way. So it was a great mechanism when it was a more fight or flight type of survival, you know, where we did have to chase our food or whatever that was. But as times change, we get these triggers that are just triggering things constantly. So that's why stress has kind of become into the light over the last few years.
And I find it's amazing how, like, some people love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a real addiction. You know, I know I'm a lot like this. You know, if I have a morning off,
Yeah.
I feel crap about myself.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm not stressing, if I'm not working, then I feel like I'm lazy.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not doing enough of what I should be.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the right mindset, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to break that cycle.
Yeah. But then it's, you know, who says that's not the right mindset, right? Because
It's a good point.
if that's the way you're wired, that's what's right to you.
Yeah.
And that's why when you talk about stress management with people, it can't be what you think. I might think breathing's great, and when I do it, which isn't every day, I feel good.
Yeah.
But for the same person, if they sit there and they feel like they're wasting their time, it's never going to have a good response anyway. If they feel better, if at the end of their busy day they get to come home and play their PS4 for an hour, just do that.
Yeah.
If that helps you switch off, and then you go to bed nice and easy.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned just a minute ago about clients that you feel like you didn't get results because of their stress load or things that were happening in their lives.
yeah.
Have you kind of worked on that in your own training?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've worked on it, like especially with like the training and things like that. But it's more just being aware of these things and understanding and being able to have that chat with people, you know. If they're going through a real stressful period of their life, which everyone has those times, it is just having the chat with them, you know. Don't hit the panic button just because things have slowed down a little bit.
And do you like offer an advice in how to deal with it, or do you find that's out of your scope of practice?
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't say offer advice. Most of the time, I think it's just listening, and the term's active listening. You know, like just talk to people. That's probably the biggest thing I've done with a lot of clients that I changed over the last 2 years, and I think that's what helps you build a good connection with your clients, is being able to just sit there, and just listen, just talk to them, find out what's going on. Because you find that a lot of the time, if someone's like self-sabotaging on their food and things like that, most of the time there's something going on which is causing that in the first place. And it's some stuff is just real stupid when you like actually talk to someone about it. And sometimes I think having that conversation, they start to realize how they're probably letting it affect them more than what they should be. So
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't recommend offering advice. I think that is a bit out of the scope.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with listening and just asking questions.
Yeah, and it's not like I've heard that from a lot of other people about talking less, listening more.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of like young PTs and a lot of people with PTs that haven't been in the industry for a while, it's hard to do that because you feel as like when you are charging X amount of money, you feel obligated to provide this much information and this much. So you just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between the great coaches and the mediocre personal trainers is that ability to just tell me what's happening. You know?
Yeah. And it's always good, like you can pick it up on your clients that you've had for years when they come in and something's up. You can tell it just in the way they're acting. And it's kind of a good bond to have with someone when you can be like, what's going on? And of course, initially they'll try to tell you nothing's going on, but it's like, I can tell there's something bothering you, If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, but don't tell me there's nothing going on because, quite clearly I can see something is bothering you. Once again, like a lot of the time, how you get those clients that just get on a roll and they have like really, really awesome week of training. A lot of the time I find that follows having those type of moments where there is something that is bothering them and then they can just kind of talk about it, get it off their chest and then keeps the ball rolling.
Sorry, just before, like you were saying that sometimes that you feel like the great weeks of training come before that or after the conversation?
After the conversation.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's kind of like you can see when it's starting to happen with people because it'll start off. You get those people that will eat all their food and get all their sessions, and then a week they start to miss a couple meals or they're not eating the right things on the weekend, and then then you get when they come in and they're just like, I don't want to do my measurements because I've been so terrible, and then that's when it's like, okay, well, there's obviously something going on because you're good 90% of the time. And then there's just something that's started to happen now. So,
and so you're just saying like how sometimes they miss a meal and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any tracking methods that you use to?
Most of the time I'll just do that at check-in with them. I do have a weekly check-in sheet, which I've just kind of revised and improved a little bit.
Yep.
And it depends on the person as well. If I'm seeing someone 3 times a week, I'm going to ask them every time I see them how they're going.
Yeah.
How's your food and whatnot? But yeah, most of the time when I'm sitting down doing someone's measurements is a good time because they know if they've been eating the wrong things.
You see the forehead sweat.
Yeah, that's it. And this is just beaming off them kind of thing. But, if someone's like measurements haven't moved and they should have moved, like because it's always like clockwork for them. Not all the time. The majority of the time it's just because the person has been eating off what they should be.
Yeah.
But most of them, I think once you have that relationship with people, and that's the thing when you can listen to them and probably talk to them more about than just training. Like at the end of the day, it is a person. I think sometimes people forget that.
Yeah, it's a person, not a case study.
Yeah, I think most of the time they're pretty open with it, and no one's perfect at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
well, what is the demographic of your clients? Do you find you gravitate to a certain group of people, athletes, general population?
It's obviously it's a lot of general pop. I would like to say I really do have one. It would be more so when I say older, I'm talking 30 to 50 mark. Like I say, I train a couple outside of that, but most of them are around that. Middle-aged people with kids working.
Yeah. Where do you think you want to be? What's your ideal future? Who do you want to train?
As long as the person is centered around health more than anything, I really could be quite flexible with the idea of who I wanted to train. Obviously, I'd love to train, high-level business people because I find conversation with them quite stimulating. More so from like a personal development standpoint, because I find a lot of people that have success in business, often the person has grown with their business to that level.
Yeah.
So more so just for conversation in sessions, I just find it a bit more stimulating to talk about. But as long as the client, it cares about their health, even if, that might take second seat to their body composition, then I'm happy to work with them. I want to work with them.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, most people, when you ask that question, they're always like, oh, I want to train athletes.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be a cool thing training high-level business people.
Yeah.
Like, use it as like a development for yourself as
Yeah,
well
absolutely.
as training
Absolutely. And I like picking the brains of people. It's probably my favorite thing to do. So it's always good.
That's really cool. So you're doing obviously the Marketober mentorship at the moment.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you went to university when you first started.
Yes.
Do you have any aspiration to go back to university?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the more I train and the more courses I go to, the more I realize that a lot of the world's top coaches really and this is kind of self-confessed by some of those coaches as well. No, I didn't really learn much at uni. It was a really good title to my name, but I learned most of it in the field. And then you get some coaches who have never stepped foot in a university, and you talk to them and you're like, my God, I didn't even understand half the words that are coming out of your mouth, let alone
I think Sebastian Arab, I don't think he went to...
No, I think he's just a remedial therapist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe one day I'd probably be more likely to go and do something like naturopathy or functional medicine as opposed to going back to university. Not that there's anything wrong with going to university if that's what you want to do. But I think, I think a lot of people go into university because it's kind of what's expected.
Yeah.
Especially when I was graduating, going through school, it was like, what university course are you doing? It wasn't, what do you want to do?
Are you going,
Or are you going to university? It was literally like, what university course are you going to do? There was no, God forbid someone dropped out at year 10.
Yeah, it was kind of like, what university you're going to or what trade are you getting?
Yeah.
And that's like the Australian way.
Yeah, that's it. Interesting, right?
Yeah. Obviously, you're going to continue on doing courses and things like that.
Yep.
Do you have any lined up that you would like to do? Or?
I'm not too sure at the moment. Next year, I am looking at doing a functional medicine course, but that is, from what I've heard from people that have done it, that's a big commitment. So if I'm going to do something like that, I want it to be the thing that I focus on solely.
Yeah.
So, if I'm still doing another year with Mark, and obviously it's not just the 4 seminars a year you go to in Melbourne, but there's always the online content to go through, and that is like hundreds and hundreds of hours with Andrew Locke and Sebastian Oreb and all their trainers.
And stuff.
There's so much to get through that, I know if I do something else like that, it's going to take away from being able to learn the stuff that I'm already paid for and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you think the future of the fitness industry is going? So obviously you've always got the fad diets, fad training methods and everything like that. And I think every 6 months there's a new one.
Yeah.
And I don't think they generally change the fundamentals of it. I think good coaches tend to stick to what they're doing.
Yeah.
But even saying that, it has changed in the last 20 years. So where do you think the future goes?
I think it's going to be based around people who actually care, to be honest with you. That's why a lot of people say face-to-face training is dying out. Online training is the new medium, which, I can understand why people are saying that. But, at the end of the day, and you see this with people, they come in and they tell you how much they've trained and they've followed all these programs. You're like, okay, do a lat pull down for me. And they don't even depress their shoulders. And you're like, so... Yeah, is that kind of where the question was going towards?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we've had such an expansion of gyms. There's a gym at every corner now.
Yeah, literally.
And, I'm sure it was a profitable thing back in the day, back in the boom days of training, early 2000s, things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel that it's obviously saturated. There's a lot of trainers that Fit College, all these types of places, not bagging on Fit College, but all these places pump out personal trainers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heaps and heaps and heaps. Where do you think that goes? Do you think that's just going to keep happening? Do you think that the cream will rise to the top?
Always the people that are good at what they do are always going to be the one that survive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that happens with a lot of degrees at university. I think the same thing is happening. I don't know enough about it to comment, but how many exercise physiologists or sports science students do you talk to? And if someone's like, what job does a sports science person do? I'd honestly probably couldn't tell you. I'm not 100% sure myself. But it's the same thing with personal trainers. I don't know what the statistic is, but I know it's less than 30% of trainers that actually get their certs will be a trainer 2 years after that.
So it's much less than that.
Much less than that. There you go. I just didn't want to give it some bullcrap number and then someone online be like, well, actually, you're 1% off. And
I could be wrong about this one, but when I was going through my certs, they gave a statistic of 1 in 10 in the first year.
Yeah.
And then 1 in 10 of those in the next 5.
Yeah, there you go.
So 6 years is a 1% success rate. So
that's a great standard. I'm just glad we made it, right?
yeah. Well, I'm not quite past the 5 years yet, but
we'll get there.
We'll get there, maybe. Cool. So this is my favorite question.
Yeah.
Right? If you could hijack the world's screens, laptop, phones, everything for a day, and you could only put a sentence on there, or I'll give you some leeway. You can do a picture or whatever.
Yeah.
You can just put one thing on everybody's screens.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Don't be too serious.
Good. You had to think about how to phrase that one.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to sound like the Joker.
No, I didn't.
No.
That's what was coming to mind when I was saying it. But
Why
yeah.
so serious?
Yeah. I probably should have said that. That would have been way better.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be too serious. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's really good.
Yeah, I think sometimes people just have one too many carrots up their ass. They just need to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I think we'll actually leave it there.
Cool.
So thank you very much for coming onto the show.
Thanks, mate.
We'll link up all your Instagram and everything like that to the show notes.
Shameless
So,
plug.
Yeah, well, definitely got to do it. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.